Greetings. This is Russ Fawcett, President of the North Carolina Friends of Midwives, and this discussion is designed to describe an evaluation method constructed by the Consumer Engagement Group to evaluate a state with respect to the women and families that choose home birth in the environment in a state I would classify as a bad one for women who seek the home setting for birth. We will describe a set of fundamental considerations and use this to evaluate the great state of North Carolina. The Consumer Engagement Group crafted a number of metrics and scores to describe the goodness or badness of a state from the consumer's point of view. Let's quickly go through these. Note again that these are critical to quality attributes for women and families who would favor midwifery care and the home setting as the preferred maternity care model. The first attribute, client autonomy, cannot be overemphasized. We take our sovereignty over our birth decisions very seriously. As such, regulatory frameworks that infringe upon this fundamental right of self-determination are quite aggravating to us. A poor state will infringe upon this right and deny access to home birth midwifery care or otherwise degrade decision-making ownership with inappropriate practice rules. The best states vigorously maintain the decision-making rights of the mother as sacrosanct and support her with the best information in evaluating risk. We know that access to trained, credentialed, integrated, and accountable midwives is fundamental to both quality and safety of maternity care for the home birth community, and we consumers care about that a lot, which is why we work so hard in state legislatures. A terrific state will have options for home birth midwives, while a bad state will offer the mothers Hudson's choice. In other words, give birth in the hospital or good luck with that on your own. We know that about 10% of planned home births at the onset of labor will transfer to the hospital, and we consumers can care that the midwife does a good job in handing off information, and we care that the hospital staff do their job effectively and respectfully. It's pretty hard to do that when the primary care provider is not licensed, and it is pretty hard to do when antagonism is nurtured in the hospital setting. We consumers care that normal methods of reimbursement are available normally to us. We care that licensed midwives are authorized to do their job to the full extent of their training. As an example, it doesn't make a lot of sense to deny licensed, certified professional midwives in Virginia the ability to carry oxygen and anti-hemorrhagic medicine. We consumers sometimes favor midwife-led care in the birth center setting, and we seek unobstructed access to this. Finally, we care about job performance. Every class of professional will produce practitioners that do not maintain expectations. And we also recognize that every well-performing professional will stumble occasionally. We also recognize that birth accidents happen, and sometimes best efforts will not carry the day. A healthy regulatory environment will meter out remedies appropriately. There are certainly other attributes we care about. We care about supporting families struggling with birth injury or loss, and I personally favor no-fault insurance for bad outcomes. But we tend to view this as an advanced aspect, and we should focus on fundamentals first. Oh, what about safety? Great day in the morning. I almost forgot about safety. Well, you know, in my experience, we crazy home birthers kind of care about safety too. So let's explore safety for a minute. For me, counting dead babies while necessary is incomplete and an unremarkable safety analysis method. For me, you need to count everything, and to make sense out of the counting, we need to do something like introduce an importance weighting factor to roll up all of the outcome measures of interest. Here you see one method that simply combines the probabilities with an importance weighting factor and then sums them all up. This is a common technique that is used when trying to compare subjects like models of maternity care with many attributes of interest. I am sure we would have a lot of fun exploring the constituent probabilities and the importance weighting factors. but I don't think we have time for this. Suffice it to say that the relationship between maternal mortality, which is somewhat elevated due to how we deliver conventional maternity care with high C-section rates and minimalist prenatal care, coupled with the big morbidities, can offset variation in perinatal mortality. We consumers care about all of this. As policymakers tend to be in the consumer group, as opposed to the provider group, we also care about cost. I hope this is not too hard to understand, but wasting money kills people. We could argue about the transfer function that translates dollars into lives all day long, but it is real. A simple example is to consider reducing the cost of maternity care by 25%, which is a really big number, and then reinvesting the savings into better support for women with disparities during the prenatal period with terrific midwifery care or centering pregnancy that will improve maternal health, reduce preterm low birth weight birth, and save babies. This is just one way to establish the sensitivity of financial effectiveness and human cost. All this makes for a good afternoon of scholarly conversation. However, it is largely academic. Women have an inherent human right to choose the setting for birth and the attendant. Safety analysis can be very simple or very complex. A simple answer is that midwife-attended home birth is a valid choice considering safety. Honorable people will recognize this and endeavor to support the women as best they can. Before evaluating the Tar Heel state, I want to touch on the home birth population. The key point I want to make here is that simply looking at the rates of actual home birth is inadequate. The home birth population is comprised of a number of elements. In a good state, with access to trained, credentialed, integrated, and regulated midwife options, the majority of women will choose either the home setting or the birth center setting with a credentialed attendant. In a bad state, where CPMs are not licensed and underground, women are confronted with solving the problem a different way. They will likely choose an unlicensed CPM if they can find one, or perhaps an uncredentialed midwife. Some will give birth at home unattended, and some will labor at home unmonitored with the intention of walking into the hospital at 9.9 centimeters, which is not a safety benefit over planned home birth with a trained midwife. Some will cross lines seeking midwifery care out of hospital. In North Carolina, we see about 350 planned CPM attended home births per year, and nearly as many cross into South Carolina, Virginia, or Tennessee seeking the same midwives where they have access. About 100 births per year are attended by CNMs in the home setting. It is not clear how many women plan an unattended birth at home or labor at home unattended, as we have poor quality control over our data. But the rates are higher than they should be. Certainly, some will simply opt for a conventional hospital-based option, but my sense is the rate is not so big, and it is a fallacy to believe that women will simply go find a nice obstetrician and birth in the hospital, where some would argue they belong, when there is a deficiency in access to home birth midwives. Okay, let's evaluate the great state of North Carolina from the home birth consumer's perspective. In simple terms, we suck. We get no points for women's autonomy as we strive to deny them access to home birth midwives. We get no points for access as our cadre of CPMs are unlicensed and less than half are practicing due to the hostile environment with the absence of licensure. We get no points for a respectful environment, and there are too many examples of poor treatment after transferring to the hospital, including the threat of losing custody of their children for exercising their right to make their own childbirth decisions. I can assign 1 point to reimbursement as CNMs can seek it. But mostly I just want to give my state a point for something. In fact, I think I want to change my mind and give us no points for reimbursement. We get no points for scope of practice as the CPMs are illegal. As an aside, we are very displeased with NCACNM for putting felony language into their bill that seeks to achieve autonomous practice. We get no points for birth centers as we only have a couple in the entire state. I will say that midwife-led birth centers are available in our neighbor states. However, in South Carolina, for example, the environment is deteriorating with hostile actions being taken by physician legislators and the oversight agency. We get no points for our regulatory infrastructure as the CPMs are unregulated. In other words, we suck, and our safety record is not what we want it to be, and the opposition to home birth and CPM licensure can look in the mirror to understand why we suck so badly. Finally, I want to invest a minute into helping everyone understand why we consumers do what we do in state houses all over the country. Here is my projection of North Carolina after enacting legislation to license and regulate CPMs. And this is the only method that has been shown to work in the United States. Almost overnight, we will double or triple our midwifery workforce, and women will have options. While I tend to think a workforce of about 50 distributed throughout the state would be desirable, we would be thrilled with 30 CPMs and 5 to 10 CNMs. We will minimize rates of planned unattended birth, and women that are being driven out of state can stay home. We can begin to invest in infrastructure to support long-term sustainability. Of course, the principal function of licensure is professional discipline, and we would expect some performance issues, some complaints and disciplinary actions, but this is how we protect consumers. With the right makeup of the regulatory board, hopefully the environment won't turn hostile. With licensure, we can achieve quality data and can measure ourselves against standards. Who knows, with quality data, maybe we could even entertain a comprehensive safety analysis method, as discussed earlier. In short, we will have done the best we can do, and will have transformed ourselves from a bad state to a good state overnight. We can then contemplate becoming best in class. Until such time, we will continue to suck.